Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Du Bois Brunch Center's program for today. I hope everyone has their hot chocolate, their coffee, and they're ready to just sit with us for the next hour and a half or so to listen to exciting information on Medicaid. Now, the Du Bois Brunch Center is situated at Medgar Evers College. We perform research and data in order to support the policies that we have for systemic problems that face our urban communities. And in those programs, we have created the Du Bois Brunch Center's legal arm to provide programming to address different situations like foreclosures, deed theft, and estate planning. We are under the vision of Dr. Blair, Dr. Zulema Blair, who is the Dean of the School of Business at Medgar Evers College, and under the leadership of our Executive Director, Latoya Benjamin. Dr. Blair, Dr. Benjamin, would you like to say anything?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning. I want to thank the team here today, Attorney Yvette Dudley, Rhonda Mako, for putting on this presentation because, as you know, we never know when things happen. Things happen abruptly, and it's always good to have a plan. As one of my faculty members always say, think of the worst thing that could happen. We don't want to think negatively, but it happens, and make a plan for it. And so that's what the Du Bois Bund Center is here to help you do today. As Yvette noted, I'm the Dean of the School of Business. We have 5 academic departments: accounting, business, administration, computer information systems, economics and finance, and public administration. And of course, the Du Bois Bund Center, where we serve as a public policy think tank and where we see that there is a need for people of African descent to benefit from public policies. We figure out a strategic plan to put in place so that we can help our people to overcome any obstacles that get in their way. Health, estates, anything legal, we're trying to be here to help you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the tables back over and yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Yes, Latoya Benjamin, would you like to say anything today? If not, I can move.
I would just say good morning, everyone. Latoya Benjamin, the director of the Du Bois Brunch Center. Super excited to be here with you all this morning, actually. And please just feel free to just subscribe to our social media, and make sure you're subscribed to our newsletters for more updates as we have these programs moving forward. Thank you.
And thank you, Aaron Jimenez, for always putting together a very smooth flowing program. So without further ado, Rhonda Mako is one of the esteemed attorneys who is with the Du Bois Brunch Center's legal arm. Rhonda L Maco has been an esteemed member of the New York State Bar, practicing law for over 20 years. She is a fierce advocate for justice, and she works hard advocating for clients as well as her community. In 2009, she founded the law office of Rhonda L Maco, PLLC, located in Garden City, New York, Long Island. Over the years, Ms. Mako has counseled and advocated for clients in a variety of personal and professional disputes involving contracts, employment law, corporate transactions, and civil litigation matters. She also represents clients during the purchase and sale of residential homes, advises startup and existing businesses on best practices, sustainability, growth, and risk management. Ms. Mako also obtains trademark and copyright registrations for individuals and businesses. A significant portion of her practice is dedicated to estate planning, protecting assets, creating residual income, legacy building, and creating that generational wealth. Mrs. Mako is admitted to the bars of the state of New York and the United States Supreme Court. Previously, she worked for 2 major New York City law firms and served as legal counsel for 2 Nassau County comptrollers. Ms. Mako has a long commitment to community service. Her community service efforts include being the site coordinator for an after-school program, community center, organizing a mentorship program for 8th and 9th grade students. She also formed a women's empowerment group designed to guide women who recently entered the workforce after decades of being unemployed. Her body of work empowering women and children continues through her development of entrepreneurship, and educational programs. Her past community service includes being a member of the Board of Trustees for the SUNY Old Westbury Foundation, working with such organizations as the Girl Scouts of Nassau County, Inc., and being vice chair of the Board of Trustees for Mercy First, which is a not-for-profit organization that provides a number of services to children and families in crisis. Ms. Mako also is the author of 2 books. It's Christmas time, so I'm sure we're putting that on our Santa list as well. These 2 books on discernment are entitled A Yearn to Discern and A Year to Discern. Her books focus on achieving the purpose and fulfillment and has led to her podcast, The Power of the Pivot, Leading with Discernment. Ms. Mako is a sought-after lecturer on issues related to a variety of issues, including entrepreneurship, leadership, estate planning, equity, inclusion, justice, and best business practices, to name only a few topics. He also lectures on issues pertinent to students in secondary and post-secondary schools on career paths and tapping into their passion. Ms. Mako is also an adjunct professor who teaches courses in entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, community development, ethics, and leadership. She lives in Baldwin, New York. I welcome Ms. Mako to the programming today. And Ms. Mako, let's talk Medicaid and long-term planning.
Yes. Well, thank you. What an introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone here from Medgar Evers College and also everyone who's attending today. I'm so glad you're here. We are here today to give you some valuable information about long-term care, and we will touch on issues such as Medicaid and Medicare to make sure you understand what we mean when we talk about long-term care and why it's necessary. As you can see from my resume, that I have a passion for community service. So one of the things that I believe in is educating, especially in our community, so that way we are fully aware of all the opportunities that are available to us. And that includes, long-term care and just taking care of your health, taking control of your finances, and all those different things that the Boys Bunch Center will be discussing. We will have more webinars of this nature, so stay tuned. This is just the first of a series that we will be providing to you. So we want to get you ready as the new year is coming around. We want you to be armed and ready for, taking control of your life and your finances and as well as your health.
Angie, what kind of
We have a guest speaker today. Her name is Sandra Salmon. Sandra is a financial planner. She is also someone who helps people with securing long-term care policies. She also helps people with Medicaid and Medicare. Sandra will be speaking with us today, and you'll have an opportunity to look at her resume and what she has to offer as well. So without further ado, I would like to share my screen, and you just let me know if you can see when I start to share. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have this PowerPoint that I want to discuss with you guys today, and it is really all about understanding long-term care. So I hope you have your coffee or your tea or your hot chocolate, and I hope you have a pen and paper because I really do want you to take some notes today. So that way you can follow up at a later date to, ask questions about long-term care. So what are we talking about when we say long-term care? What is long-term care? Long-term care consists of a broad range of services designed to meet health or personal care needs, right? That's really what we're talking about. Long-term care services support people who can no longer perform tasks independently. So, when we think about, sometimes when people think about long-term care, they think about, their parents or their grandparents, but a lot of times we don't think about ourselves. Listen, we're not trying to make you feel paranoid or anything like that. We want you to be prepared. The whole point about long-term care is it is a proactive measure that people will take in terms of making sure that you are financially, um, you will able to, not deplete your finances. You will be prepared. You will make sure you take control of your health. It's a proactive measure. This is not the type of policy you will get once you get sick. But we'll talk about that later. So just keep in mind that this is not just about your parents or, people that you take care of. It's about you. It's about your loved ones. It's about making sure you understand what it means to look at long-term care. And the goal of long-term care is maintaining dignity, independence, and quality of life. It's very important. When we all are going to get old. We're going to get older. And, listen, some things happen to us that we have no control over, right? So when we talk about long-term care, we're going to talk about illnesses and, things such as medical history, your family medical history, things that you should be looking at to understand where you stand health-wise. And one of the biggest things that we all want as we get older is we all want to be independent. We all want to be independent. And slowly but surely, some of that independence is taken away from us as we age. And if that happens, we want to be prepared so that way we have measures in place that will help us keep our dignity and our quality of life and some level of independence. So it's very important. So when we talk about long-term care, we're talking about daily living needs or what we call ADLs and IADLs. What is that? So ADLs are things such as bathing, dressing, eating, toileting, transferring, and continence. Continence is the ability to control movements of the bowel and the bladder. So, these are things that we do every single day. We don't really think about it, almost like we take it for granted. But as we get older, things happen and we have to be prepared for those. So those are daily living needs. Now, instrumental activities of daily living are things such as managing finances, housekeeping, transportation, medication management, and meal preparation. Again, things that some of us do on a daily basis, and we don't ever think about what would happen if I can no longer do these, perform these functions anymore. But we really need to think about that. So long-term care often becomes necessary when assistance is needed in one or more of these areas. So when you think about all the different things we do on a daily basis, you can lose the ability to do one or two of these things, and it will be something where you need help. So it's important for you to start thinking about this now and not wait until something happens. So, who needs long-term care? Older adults experiencing frailty or chronic illness. And that's what we normally think about when we think of long-term care. We think of older adults. We think of our parents, our grandparents, or, maybe an older sibling or something like that. But we usually only think about older adults. But it could also be individuals with dementia or cognitive decline. And let's be, very clear. Dementia can happen earlier than you think. And that's what people don't seem to understand sometimes. Some of the things that may befall us, they don't necessarily happen in our 70s or 80s if we're lucky to live that long. They can come on in our 50s or, you don't know, right? Or sometimes we have to take better control of our health. We need to go to those doctor's appointments. We need to go to our annual appointments. We need to make sure that when we feel something and someone says that, it's no big deal. I've experienced that. It's no big deal. Find out anyway. If something doesn't feel right, let's deal with it. But again, you want to have something in place in the event something happens. Adults recovering from major surgeries or medical events. So here's another thing. Again, we think that this is something that someone who is older than we are need to think about. But no, you can have major surgery for anything, something that you didn't anticipate. God forbid you get into a car accident that requires major surgery, or again, you're going to your annual routine checkup and you find something, the doctor finds something, and they may tell you you might have to have major surgery. Well, that major surgery might mean that you are out of commission for a certain period of time. So again, you want to just keep in mind that don't think of long-term care as someone else. You think about it as a protection that you should be thinking about as a part of your overall estate planning. Okay? So now look at what I highlighted in red. Good health is a requirement for long-term care insurance. And see, this is the point that we need to bring home, because a lot of times people think that when they get diagnosed or when something happens, now we want to put a policy in place. That's not the case with long-term care. You're not going to be able to get a policy after your health starts to decline. Ms. Salmon will talk more about that, but you just have to be clear that long-term care is a proactive measure. We do it before something happens, not when something happens. So let's just talk about the type of services we are talking about when we say long-term care services. Now, remember I said ADLs. Let me just go back to that slide real quick. ADLs and IADLs. Those are the type of services we're talking about. Activities of daily living. So someone can help you with bathing, dressing, eating, toileting, transferring incontinence. Also managing finances, housekeeping, transportation, medication management, and meal preparation. Also, and that's part of personal care assistance. But also, we're talking about home health care and skilled nursing, adult day health services, and respite care. Just in case you don't know what respite care is, it's temporary relief for family caregivers who are taking care of someone who may be seriously ill. So it's really respite care is giving a break to the caregivers who help those who are ill. So that is a part of long-term care. Also, assisted living and residential care, skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes, and palliative and hospice care. Palliative care is a type of specialized care for individuals who have serious illnesses. So in case you're not familiar with some of these terms, we would just want to make sure that you understand what some of these terms mean. And if you have any questions, you can ask us. But I want you to become familiar with the types of services that is included in long-term care services, because oftentimes people don't think that a long-term care policy is important because they don't even understand the type of services that are included in that type of policy. So again, what we want to do is make sure that you're versed in the type of services available and what we're really talking about here. So now, where is long-term care provided? It could be provided at home. That's one of the most common preferences. In the perfect world, if you do need long-term care and if you have a long-term care policy, most people want to have their loved ones stay at home and someone come to the house and be able to assist them and give them the services they needed. While that's the most preferable situation, that's not always the way it's going to work. It just depends on the type of services that are needed and other things that may come up that will require more than at-home service. So, but at home is one of the places where long-term care is provided. Also, assisted living facilities, nursing homes with 24/7 medical care. There are also community-based programs such as adult day centers. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but there are adult day centers where long-term care is provided. And then there are also specialized memory care units. Again, depending upon the type of illness we're talking about, that may be important. And then also continuing care retirement communities, known as CCRCs. So this gives you, a list of places where long-term care is provided. So it's not just home, but there are other facilities. And again, it depending upon what type of illness we're talking about, it may require one of these type of places. So now let's talk, costs. You have to talk costs. Now, this is really an important part that I really want people to take some notes on. What are the costs of long-term care? So costs vary by care type, right? Depending upon what we're talking about. Cancer, dementia, I don't know, we can go down the list. So it depends on what type of care we're talking about. Also, the geographic region we're talking about and support needs. So now listen, we're in New York. We already know that the costs here are higher than most places, if not the highest. So that's why we have to be concerned about these type of costs, right? So let's talk about approximate annual costs. If you're talking about a home health aide, so the national average is approximately $65,000 a year. But of course, in New York, it's more than that, right? New York costs are about 7,000 a month or approximately 84,000 per year. Now we're talking about Long Island in the five boroughs. Um, Different regions in New York may be a little less than this, maybe a little bit more, not sure. But these are the types of costs. So just think about that for a second. 1 year of service, 84,000 a year and going up as we speak. That's for home health aid. If we're talking about assisted living, the national average is approximately 48,000. New York, 75,000 to 120,000 per year. That's for assisted living. Now, what about nursing home? So, again, when you're talking about nursing home, you'll have either a shared room or a private room. The national average for a shared room is approximately 110,000. In New York, a shared room is approximately 145,000 a year. And for a private room, 185,000 a year. So we're talking a lot of expenses here. It's a lot. And like I said, you may want to have these services performed at home, but it may not be feasible. Again, Ms. Salmon will talk more about that, but again, you may want to do certain things, but if you're behind the eight ball and didn't consider these costs or have this type of long-term care policy in place, these are going to be out-of-pocket expenses. And where are these expenses going to come from? And we'll talk about that in a second. So in any event, long-term care expenses can significantly impact savings if not planned for. So if you have this nice little nest egg and you've been saving up, and then God forbid something happens where you have to now pay out of pocket for a home health aide or assisted living or nursing home because you don't have a long-term care policy in place, that's going to be an issue. And again, these costs are currently rising even as we speak. So let's be very specific. How is long-term care paid for? So if you don't have a long-term care policy in place, it's going to be out-of-pocket payments. Long-term care insurance must be purchased in advance. So if you purchased a long-term care insurance policy before you have this medical emergency or illness that has come on come upon you, then that long-term care insurance policy will cover it. So this is where now we talk about Medicaid. Let's just say you don't have a savings that you can use to pay for these medical expenses, and you don't have a long-term care policy that you purchased in advance. Well, Medicaid is available for eligible individuals. Medicaid eligibility is based upon income and asset limits, and these limits are subject to change as they are constantly being updated by Medicaid. Now, Sandra is going to be talking about those limits in a minute, but these are the things that you have to think about. If you don't have a long-term care policy and you don't have savings that you can rely upon, you're going to now try to seek Medicaid and see if you qualify for Medicaid. The other thing I just want to mention, and Sandra is going to talk more about this as well, Medicare. Medicare provides limited coverage for skilled short-term care, but pursuant to Medicare guidelines, Medicare does not pay for long-term care. And a lot of people don't understand that. People get confused between Medicaid and Medicare. So Sandra's going to talk more about that. But again, you have to understand these differences and what you could be eligible for and what is out there so that way you don't get caught behind the eight ball with all of this. So she's going to talk more about that. And then I just want to mention veterans benefits are also available for qualified individuals. So some of you may be veterans thinking that you are going to be able to pay for these medical expenses because you have some type of policy in place. But you have to know if that policy is going to be able to cover this. So again, it would behoove you to start to look at this now and understand where you stand. There are people out there who do have policies that are in place, and they think that these policies are going to cover them long term when they will not. So if you're not sure, you need to get someone to do an evaluation, and we'll talk about that later. And then finally, some states offer um, long-term care partnership programs. Sandra will also talk about that as well. And so actually at this moment, let me just keep this slide up, and then let me introduce you to Sandra. Let me pull up her bio. So Sandra, would you like to talk to our audience about long-term care and Medicaid and Medicare and how that factors into the whole issue of long-term care?
Yes, thank you, Rhonda. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me today. This is such an important topic, and I'm glad there's a big discussion on the way because oftentimes you're not aware of how this impacts you until you're right deep in the middle of everything. So I'm going to address certain topics that Rhonda just mentioned. Um, I'm going to start with Medicare, Medicaid. Let me just differentiate because, oftentimes I get calls from attorneys or family members, and the situation is already escalated, and a long-term care insurance plan cannot be purchased because the individual's health is now the big factor and they will not qualify for the care, okay, or for the policy because you have to be in good health to qualify from the policy. Now, when I say in good health, I don't mean that you have to be 20 years old, running a marathon, don't take any medications. That's not the case. But if you are already using a walker, a cane, or crutch, or in a wheelchair, that will disqualify you from getting a policy. If you've had numerous surgeries due to heart attack, stroke, those situations may disqualify you from getting a policy. Years ago, someone who had breast cancer was not able to get a policy, but things have changed. you could have had breast cancer and now you're 5 years in remission and perfectly fine, and you are qualified to get a policy. So it's really important to have conversations with someone like myself, and to do the research to make sure you know if you qualify, what's available, and how to go about putting everything in place. Now, I mentioned I want to just go through the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. And this is something I think you should jot down because a lot of individual gets confused as to which program does what. Medicaid is the state of your wealth. Again, Medicaid is the state of your wealth. If you have no money, if you have no assets, if you have no income, Medicaid will be there to assist you. Medicare is the state of your health. Medicare is paying for your health needs. Individuals on Medicare are on Medicare because they're 65 or older and have worked enough quarters, which means they've worked a minimum of 10 years and paid into Social Security, and now they qualify for Medicare. And Medicare is not free because sometimes I get that question. Medicare Part A, which deals with hospital, is free. Medicare Part B, which deals with the doctors, you do have to pay a cost, and the cost is based upon your income. And what the government does is the Social Security, they look at the 2 years prior to 65, and they use that income to determine what you will be charged for Medicare Part B. So going into 2026, they're looking at income from 2024 to determine what you will pay for your Part B for Medicare. Okay? Now, when you're on Medicare, it's going to help you with your doctor's visits. It's going to help you with hospitalization. You're going to have to get another plan that's called a supplemental or a Medicare Advantage. You're going to have a prescription plan. And these are all things that are required. And sometimes I run into people who don't realize that these things are required, and for some reason, something has slipped through the cracks, and now they're in a penalty phase because they did not enroll in these programs when they were initially eligible to enroll in the program. And once you start going into a penalty phase, that penalty is a lifetime penalty. It's not a one-time penalty, it's a lifetime penalty. So you have to make sure you plan, do your research, be ready. When you're turning 65, it's not automatic. You have to know that you need to contact Social Security, put in your application for Medicare. If you're working full-time for a large company, it works a little differently. But you have to make sure you're proactive and apply for Medicare. Okay? Now, let me go back to Medicaid. Again, I mentioned Medicaid is the state of your wealth. So if you do not have a pension coming in, if you do not have a large Social Security benefit coming in, if you do not own a house, or you could own a house, you may be able to get some assistance from Medicaid, depending on the type of care that you need. So I'm going to just give you some numbers so that you get an idea when I say Medicaid is the state of your wealth. In order to get assistance for Medicaid to pay for care, and this could be home care, institutional care, an individual, single person, cannot have more than $1,800 a month in income. You cannot have more than $32,400 in assets. If you are over these limits,
appointment on Monday, the 22nd at 3:30 in the afternoon. Please give us a call back.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Sandra, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think that last situation just muted me. But anyway, go back to the income levels. So a single individual earning over $1,800 a month does not qualify for Medicaid. If you have assets of $32,400, you do not qualify for Medicaid. You can consult with a Medicaid attorney, and there are special programs where you actually pay and buy into Medicaid, but that's something that would have to be looked at, and it's on a personalized level. If you are a married couple, you can have up to $162,600 in assets. Over that level, again, you would not qualify. Um, you would have to do special planning and you would have to buy into the Medicaid program in order to get assistance. Okay? So, when you live in New York, you've worked quite a number of years, hopefully. You may have a retirement income. You could have a pension coming in along with your Social Security. These are things that can never come out of your name. If your income is $9,000 a month between Social Security and pension, that money is going straight to a nursing home or paying for the cost of care if you need care and you have not put a long-term care policy in place. Okay? Now, when it comes to Medicare and paying for long-term care, in order to get any assistance, Medicare will pay for a limited number of days for skilled nursing care only, not for custodial, and I'll go through the difference between the two. Skilled nursing care. In order for Medicare to pay for that, you must first be hospitalized for 3 consecutive days and then go from the hospital to a nursing home rehab. Medicare will then pay for the first 20 days in full. So if the nursing home rehab is costing $15,000 a month, Medicare is going to pay the first 20 days in full. After that, you have a remaining 80 days in which you are responsible for a co-share. For next year, that will be $209.50 for 2026. So you would be responsible for paying $209.50 for 80 days. After those 80 days, Medicare pays nothing. And if you don't have long-term care insurance, you are responsible for the full cost. Okay, so again, you have to do your planning. It's important to do your planning. Now, there are different types of long-term care programs that are available. There is traditional long-term care, which is a policy that will cover you for care at home, assisted living, nursing home. If you purchase a policy in New York and you retire to North Carolina, that policy is going to go with you and pay for your care there. And then there's something that's called a partnership policy. The partnership policy is based on each state's Medicaid program. Now, originally, there were 4 states that had a partnership program in place: New York, California, Connecticut, and Indiana. Those were the original partnership programs. A number of years later, all the other states jumped on board. But every partnership program does work specific with their state because it's aligned with each state's Medicaid program. Some states are no longer selling the partnership program right now. So you have to be aware if the state that you're living in, is it available for you to even get it this time? Some states it's not available. Some states it still is available. If you have a program that you purchased 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the program is still in place and it will still work and do what it was designed to do. But it's just that new enrollees do not have access to the program. So again, it depends on your state. Okay. The other thing I want to also mention is that these long-term care policies Oh, actually, there's one more policy before I change. Let me just mention. And this came about within the last 10 years or so. Individuals would say, well, if I buy a long-term care policy and I don't use it, what happens to the benefit? And it's like homeowners or auto insurance. You don't use it, you lose it. So the insurance departments and the insurance field determined that they were going to come up with what's called a hybrid policy. So now there is a life insurance with a long-term care benefit rider. And so that's for the individual who says, well, what if I don't use it? Well, if you don't use it for long-term care and you pass away, then that money goes to your beneficiary and it's going to your beneficiary tax-free, which is fantastic. Transferring that wealth to a beneficiary tax-free, that's how you help to create generational wealth. If you, however, need care, you have that policy there that's going to pay you in order to hire someone to assist you to pay for your home care, or if you need to go to a nursing home, or if you're going into an assisted living facility. But the important thing is that these policies allow you to maintain your independence. It allows you to be in control to determine where you want to get your care, who's going to provide that care, and how long that care you may want to pay for it for. So it's important because these policies really allows an individual to maintain their independence and maintain control of their assets. Okay. Now, I think we're going to do questions at the end, if I'm correct, Rhonda. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Sandra,
Another, oh,
can you
sure.
just talk briefly about veterans? Because there are some veterans out there and I know they have policies and think that everything is going to be fine with that policy, but then they need to understand that they need to know what that policy says.
Okay, so I let me jot that down. I'll talk about the veterans and then I'll go back. I just want to mention, well, let me just mention this one thing before I go into the veterans. When you're dealing with and you're purchasing a long-term care policy, long-term care policies are tax qualified. In order for it to be tax qualified, the policy must state that your physician will determine that you need assistance and it has to be for 90 days or longer. If it's not 90 days or longer, it's not considered a long-term care need. Once that language is in your policy, that makes your policy tax qualified. Therefore, you are able to get some tax benefit on the state side for a regular individual when you have a long-term care policy. You always want to let your accountant know this is a long-term care policy I have. I'm paying X number of dollars per year for it. And based upon the cost and your age, they will do the calculated deductions or credit to let you know how much you will save on New York State taxes for having a long-term care policy in place. Okay? Now, in terms of veterans, um, we thank you, and sometimes I don't think that veterans are really informed about how things work and what's available to them. If you are a veteran and you're working with the VA, and you live close to a VA hospital, that is fantastic. But if you are a veteran and you go to, I'm going to use a hospital that probably most people know, NYU Langone. NYU Langone is not covering or giving you veterans benefits. You must go to a VA hospital in order to get veterans benefits. Also, I think a lot of veterans are not aware, depending on your status, the service, did you see combat? How long were you in combat? That will determine what type of benefits you will get. It will also determine will they cover the cost of long-term care? And were you disabled due to combat or see in action? And that will determine, again, will they cover long-term care for that particular situation? Someone who was, we'll say, signed up on a, uh, they were signed up, but they never saw any military action. They were just in reserve. They are not going to get full benefits compared to someone who served and saw first line action in the field. So it's important, if you are a VA, if you are a vet, to contact the closest VA that you work with to find out what exactly you do qualify for in the event of a long-term care need, and find out where the closest VA hospital is to you so that you can get that care if needed. But again, if you go to a private hospital, NYU Lingo, Northwell, Cornell, New York Presbyterian, they are not giving you benefits based upon you being a veteran. You have to be treated at a VA in order to get those benefits. Okay?
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to see, Rhonda, there was another slide that you had a couple.
Yes. Let me go through a couple of things after this information, and there is a couple of other issues I want you to talk about as well.
Okay.
So listen, everyone, I know this is a lot of information, right? This is why this topic is so important and why we want to make sure you're educated, because a lot of times we think that we're covered and everything is going to be okay and we have insurance in place, and then something happens and then now we're scrambling and we're trying to figure out what we need to do. And we want to avoid that as much as possible. So again, I know this is a lot of information. You will be able to call us and be able to talk about any issues or questions that you have after we complete this session. So let me go to the next slide. So, after all that information, this is why we have to talk about planning. So, why planning ahead matters? It matters, number one, to maintain independence. Ms. Salmon talked about that. One of the most important areas when we talk about the purpose of long-term care is for someone to maintain independence. And I've seen this so often, and I know Ms. Salmon has seen it as well. You have clients who come to us and they want to either maintain their own independence, or they're thinking about a loved one who wants to maintain their independence, but certain situations have happened, and now you can't get the type of services that you really would want to maintain that level of independence. So it's really difficult, and we want to avoid those type of situations. But maintaining independence is one of the number one priorities for having long-term care. Also, you want to protect your savings and assets, right? If you don't have a long-term care policy, you're going to either try to qualify for Medicaid, and we just talked about the income and asset requirements. And again, these requirements change all the time. We have to constantly check with Medicaid to see what those new rates are, because they change. So if you don't qualify for Medicaid and you don't have a long-term care policy in place, now we're talking about you dipping into your savings. And we already went through numbers of what it costs per year, what it costs per month to get the type of services that you will need, right? So you want to protect your savings and assets. Another reason why you want to plan, it reduces emotional strain on family members. Let's just be honest about this. When there is an illness that comes upon you or a loved one, it's a toll that it takes on the person who has the illness, but all of their loved ones, the family. And now you're talking about a situation where you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for this. And there's so many different moving parts with understanding how to navigate a serious illness, that strain, that emotional strain that it takes really starts to wear you down and your family structure. So we want to, again, avoid this. You also want to plan ahead because it ensures individuals receive care aligned with their wishes. One of the worst things you can do is leave this to chance and not be able to provide your loved one or yourself with the level of care that you worked so hard to have. Listen, if you've been working all of your life and you've given so much and done all these different things, if by chance you need to have services provided to you, you want to have the type of care that you would want to receive, right? But if you don't have a policy in place and you don't have the money to pay for it out of pocket, that level of care that you would want may not be within your reach. In addition, planning ahead allows for informed decision making, right? So you planned for this. You went over the policy with your, planner, so that way you can understand the different types of services that you're getting. Ms. Salmon also mentioned about the type of long-term care policies. You can have a hybrid policy, but what does that mean? You need to sit down and talk with someone to understand what's available, so that way, in the event something happens, you can make informed decisions about what's going to happen next. And then finally, planning ahead helps avoid crisis-based high-cost care decisions. And that's where a lot of people find themselves, in crisis mode, because they didn't plan ahead. And now, depending upon what the diagnosis is and what has to happen, now it's a complete shock. And now you have to scramble to figure out what you can do, what you can afford, and all those different things. So you want to plan ahead so that way you don't have to worry about a lot of different things that people have to worry about once they have a medical event and they're not prepared for it. So now, legal and advanced care planning. So this long-term care is a part of your overall estate planning. And that's what people fail to understand. When you go to your attorney and start talking about estate planning, a lot of people come with specific things that they want. Oh, someone, my so-and-so, my father got married to someone, and I want to make sure that the house that he lives in is protected. And they'll think about that, but then that's the only thing that they want to talk about. No, when you start your estate planning, long-term care should be part of the conversation as well. You should have a healthcare proxy and a living will. So let's be very clear. You need to be thinking about all these different issues. Your health, any health issues that you've had in the past, any family history that you need to be aware of, things of that nature. Power of attorney, because all these things go hand in hand when you start talking about your estate planning. Estate and trust planning, because what we didn't talk about, if you have to rely on Medicaid, and you think you're going to be able to qualify, there might be an issue if you own a house. Well, there will be an issue if you own a house. So now we're talking about trust planning, and that's a whole separate, webinar that we'd have to do to talk about that. But you see how all these things are interconnected. So one of the things that you should do is long-term care insurance evaluation. That's what Ms. Salmon does. You need to really sit down with someone and talk about, what your needs are, where you are, what your health status is, and things of that nature, so you can have a proper evaluation conducted. And then also documenting care preferences, right? So you want to document, what are your care preferences? People need to really understand what they are. So that way there's no surprises, and whoever is going to be helping you with your healthcare issues, they understand what it is that you prefer. And then planning for end of life care. So listen, I understand that this whole topic is not the easiest topic to talk about. It's not pleasant. It's not something that anyone really wants to talk about. But it's a necessary, you know, discussion that needs to be had sooner rather than later. So just please keep that in mind. And so now let's talk about some trends in long-term care. This is why you really need to plan and think about this topic now. So there's a growth in aging population. And when there's a growth in aging population, that increases care demands. So we all know that people are living longer now. But with living longer, there comes issues that come with people aging and living longer. So this is why you need to be planning ahead if you understand these trends. Also, there's a shift towards home and community-based services. People want to have services provided in the home. And there's community-based services as well, add social aspects to all of this. So you have to think about these trends and how they will impact the services that you will get. The other thing, and Sandra's going to talk about these next two things, there's a focus on cultural competence and person-centered care. Now think about that for a second. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I want Sandra to address this, but cultural competence is a very important aspect of care, right? You want to have somebody who is culturally sensitive or culturally educated in how to deal with someone. Some of us have, grandparents, who may speak in a different language, and they may need a certain type of person who is able to, communicate with them properly. But again, I'll let Sandra talk about that. The last thing is increasing caregiver shortages nationwide. So these are the trends that are going to that you need to be aware of because they have an impact on the services that are provided. So Sandra, can you talk a little bit about cultural competence and also the increasing caregiver shortages and why these trends are important to discuss now?
Sure. Okay, in terms of cultural competence here, a lot of individuals, they might be from a certain background, they might be from a certain ethnicity, they might be, they might have a certain preference in terms of types of food that they want to eat. And all these things impact when they're making a decision in terms of who they're going to hire to assess to help assist with their care. I have individuals that will say, well, we're from Indian descent. I want someone that speaks Indian and will cook Indian food. I have someone that's Italian that might say, we only want someone who knows how to cook Italian food and speaks Italian because my grandmother or my mother doesn't speak English and we like them to be able to communicate. All of these things, play a factor. There's also individuals, usually, some of these individuals receiving long-term care at home are elderly and they have hearing aids. And that's also a factor. When someone has an accent, and someone has a hearing aid, it's not always easy for them to understand what that person is saying. So I will have individuals say to me, I don't want anyone with an accent because that is really difficult because I already have a hearing issue and it's not clear when I have my hearing aids in, and then that just puts on an added layer of frustration. So all of these things you have to take into consideration when you're looking to hire someone to perform care at home or if you're going into an assisted living facility. Typically, if you're moving into an assisted living facility, they will also go through these questions with you, and they have individuals with multi languages, so it's typically not that big of an issue. But when you are at home hiring privately a home health aide, these are things that you definitely want to take into consideration, which brings you to the next issue, which is the shortage of caregivers. Uh, the population is aging. I have clients who are 96, 97, 98 at home with home health aides. And they are still mobile. They go out every day. They might wear a hearing aid. They don't drive, but they want an aide that will be able to drive. They want an aide that cooks a certain way. And sometimes you get an individual who this comes up more frequently than not. You have a male person that needs a male aide, and they require a male aide because they might be larger and need someone who is going to be able to help with the lifting, and the petite young woman is not going to be able to work in that environment or the situation. I also have situations where the wife would say, I don't want a woman working with my husband. I want only a male aide to come in and assist. So there are situations where, based upon who needs help, you're getting an aide based upon what the client is asking for in terms of assistance. Right now, there is a great shortage with male aides because, again, male aides are always being sought for with a male client. A female does not want another female coming into the house. They feel that their husband will bond with another male. They can watch sports. They can take him out of the house. So these are little things that you don't even realize until something goes wrong and someone is saying, okay, can you please help me find a home health aide? And these are the requirements that I'm looking for. It's much easier to get a qualified female home health aide than it is to get a qualified male aide. It is more expensive to hire a male aide because there is such a shortage for male aides. Okay, Rhonda, I'll turn it back over to you. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Sandra. So that's why looking at these trends are important, because we need to make sure that people understand how these trends affect the types of services. And again, some of the things that we talk about, a lot of times people are not even thinking about that. They're not thinking about the shortages and how they will affect the type of services that they may need. If you think about your loved ones, and like it's size might be an issue, and you might need a particular type of uh aid to come and help in the home. So again, these issues are very important for you to understand, and that's why we wanted to bring them up today. So now, we want to make sure that we answer some questions. So here's a quick summary of what we talked about today. So long-term care includes medical, personal, and support services for individuals with long-term needs, right? And then those services range from home care to skilled nursing facilities. And then the costs can be significant, as we discussed, making early planning essential. This is a proactive type of planning that has to be done. Legal and financial planning helps maintain your independence, which is very important. We all want to be independent as we get older. We all do. I've seen it happen all the time where that's always an issue. We want that independence. We want to protect assets, and it ensures that continuity of care is provided. And then understanding long-term care options empowers individuals and families to make informed decisions, and that's what we want. So, where do you begin? So, listen, if you listen to what we talked about and you understand, the importance of long-term care, you got to start somewhere. And I would recommend that you start with knowing your family medical history. Now, some of you may not be able to get some of your family history, medical history, for a variety of reasons. But to the extent that you do know or can get information, please start there. Start to go back, does cancer run in your family? Does hypertension run in your family? You need to know that medical history. Again, I understand that some people may not be able to get too much information, but to the extent that you can, please inquire and get that information. And then, of course, you want to take control over your own health. So again, listen, you could be in great shape now, and you want to maintain that healthy state. That take control over your diet, take control over your health in terms of making sure you get your checkups and things of that nature. If you have any issues now, maybe you can, if you speak to your primary physician about how you can, take care of these issues, deal with them now. Again, long-term care policy you get when you're healthy, not when you're sick. So to the extent that you see anything brewing, but you're fine, work on that now. Deal with it so that way it doesn't become a problem. So look at your overall health and start there. And then lastly, you want to begin your estate planning now. Because again, long-term care is a part of that overall conversation that you should be having with your advisors, your attorney, your financial planner, so that way you can do an evaluation to understand what is best for you. So these are the things that you can start doing now, so that way you'll be prepared. And then you want to get an evaluation on your long-term care, to understand what it is you need to be doing right now. And then let me stop sharing this PowerPoint. Okay. So again, I know that this is a lot of information that we put at you today. This is not going to be the only session that we have. I'm sure you're going to have some questions, and we will try to answer as many questions as we possibly can.
Thank you so, so, so much, Rhonda and Sandra, for that wealth of information. I'm still writing down information that you guys are saying. Thank you for sharing that with the registrants today. I did have a question. I would like all the registrants to start thinking of their questions so we can ask Rhonda and Sandra. And we're also going to announce one-on-one sessions that Rhonda is available for in January to everyone who registered. It's a wealth of information. There's an important topic. Tomorrow is Sunday, a day for family gatherings. So we should implement many of the things that Rhonda and Sandra said today and speak with our family members. But my initial question is, let's just pretend, of course, that I'm 57 years old and I want to start doing the estate planning that you guys talked about today, specifically long-term care. If I'm going to be in relatively okay health for the next 10, 20 years or so, should a person like me purchase long-term care? And if I did, does that money just go to waste because I don't need it? How does that work?
Okay, I'll take that question. Okay, if you were 55, 57 and looking for long-term care today, I would say fantastic. That's the best move ever. You want to start young. New York State's slogan is "Do not leave your 40s without it." Most people don't know that. We're talking about looking at 50, 55, but New York State's slogan is "Don't leave your 40s without it." So you're already behind the eighth ball. So, so that's why I'm saying congratulations if you're going to look in your 50s. Um, the One of the primary things people don't understand is that when you're dealing with insurance, and long-term care insurance is an insurance. Insurance is based upon your age and your health. The younger you are, the less expensive the program. The healthier you are, the less expensive the program. You could take out a program in your 50s and not use the program until you're 70 or 80. By that time, you would recuperate within the first 6 months all the premiums you have paid in due to the cost of care skyrocketing. There are a number of different factors when you're looking at a policy that you do have to take into consideration on. One is inflation. So you're purchasing a policy today in your 50s, and knock on wood, you don't need it until you're 70, 80, maybe 90. You want to make sure that those benefits that you're buying today is going to be sufficient for a year to later years. So you want to make sure the policy has an inflation protection built into it. So yes, the younger you are, the better it is to start with these programs. I'm going to mention, I don't like to get into politics, but I'm just going to mention this because it will come back around at some point in time. It was in the legislature under the Biden presidency where it was going to be implemented that individuals without long-term care will now be assessed a state tax. And it would have been a state payroll tax. Now, California was they were in the forefront of trying to get the plan in place. New York was running behind in the second. Washington had already put a policy in place. And that caused such a problem. Individuals were told that they needed to have a long-term care policy in place. The insurance companies could not keep up with the demand and the enrollment, and quite a few carriers dropped enrollment for long-term care policies in that state. Okay? Now, what happened was when that happened, all the other states put a brake on the situation and said, okay, we want to see how they rectify this before we try to move ahead. New York State had originally planned on implementing this, and everything was put on a hold. Everything has been put on a hold. So right now, we don't know what's going to happen, but there was legislation passed where if a individual did not have a long-term care policy already in place, they would be put on a state long-term care plan. And the reason for doing this is to try to take off the burden off of Medicaid. So it would become like another Medicare program. So you're going to be paying into a tax if you don't have the policy. If you have a long-term care policy in place before the states put this program in place, then you would be exempt from having to pay that payroll tax for long-term care. But right now, like I said, everything is put on hold, but this is something that is still in the pipeline. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen and when it's going to start again.
And see, this is another reason why you have to be aware of what's going on. You know, putting politics aside in terms of whatever your political beliefs are, whoever is in office or is going to be in office, you need to understand what those issues are, because if they're putting forth something about long-term care, you need to know about that. And when you sit down with Sandra to have an evaluation, these are the issues that will come up. We want to make sure that you're educated. Sandra, can you just, I didn't properly introduce you and let people know your background. Can you give people a little quick bio so that way they know exactly what you do?
Oh, sure. I'm a financial advisor, insurance broker. I work with companies as well as businesses. I put in place 401ks, retirement planning, financial planning, long-term care planning. When I meet with an individual and we're doing estate planning, long-term care is always a portion of the planning. I will meet with them, do planning in terms of what their expectations are for income, for retirement, if they plan on moving to another state and what that might look like in terms of what their income will be, what their expenses will be, what the cost of long-term care is in that state compared to where they are currently living. So these are all things that we take into consideration. I work with companies where we try to put long-term care benefits in place for the employees. Sometimes the company will say, we're going to contribute X number of dollars for anyone that enrolls going forward for the next X number of years. When an employee leaves, they leave with that plan, and guess what? Their employer had contributed to some money to the cost of that plan, and that employee can now take it with them when they leave. So it really depends on the companies. There are companies that will have long-term care programs available. If they do and they offer it, please, please look at those benefit packages and review and speak to someone like myself to make sure it is a policy that's going to do what you're looking for it to do. Because the worst thing to do is to buy a policy. I'll give you an example. I sat down with someone who bought a policy that covers $100 a day. We live in New York. That $100 a day is not getting much care. You might be getting 4 hours. You're not getting paid for care in an assisted living or a nursing home at $100 a day. So these are the things that you really want to, be careful of. When you're looking into these policies and you're making plans, you want to make sure you're getting adequate coverage that is going to keep up with inflation and it's going to protect and help you to provide the care that you're looking for in the event of a long-term care needs. So I've been doing this, over 15 years at this point. And I I have lots of clients that a lot of people will think I'm a social worker. And I think it's because of my caring nature. But I'm a financial advisor, insurance broker, and I help clients. My clients become my family, and they work very hard, and they build legacy, they build wealth, and they want to pass it on to the next generation. And it's my job to help them, protect them, and show them how to get it to the next generation without losing it to something like illness. I work with individuals in New York to California, North Carolina, South Carolina, in many different states. I think at this point, I think I'm licensed in about 26 states. So, and if I'm not able to work in that state, I can always refer someone who is. But I've been doing this again over 15 years, and it's some topic that I am very fond of. It's very close and dear to my heart. And I think it's important to know and protect yourself and your family so that you can have the right plan and in place for the future.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rhonda.
No, I was just gonna say wonderful. Thank you for that, Sandra. So again, it's part of your overall estate planning. It's not just one aspect of it. It's understanding all the different moving parts and being able to do what's best for you and your loved ones. What other questions do you have?
While folks think of their questions, I want to announce Rhonda Maco's one-on-one sessions. She has made herself available through the Du Bois Bunch Center. She is one of the esteemed attorneys that's on the team of attorneys at the Du Bois Bunch Center's legal arm. She's having one-on-one sessions every Tuesday in January, starting January 6th through January 27th, from the hours of 12:30 to 3:30 virtually. I put a link in the chat. You just have to register, and then an appointment will be scheduled with Ms. Mako. Please register. Thank you. I see a question from Faye Hill.
Good afternoon. This is a wonderful session. My name is Faye Hill, and I live in Springfield Gardens, and I'm a district leader for 31B. This is amazing that we didn't have more people online for this because this is very, very important for people to know about their wealth and their future. I am a senior. I have long-term care, and I'm going to be looking at this policy because, as Ms. Moore mentioned, some policies are not the right policies for us. But my question is, I have an organization that we look at, that we try to get the seniors to come out and participate in like sessions like this and informational sessions. How can we collaborate with you guys to get the seniors that I work with in Springfield Gardens to know about what's going on in their life and also for their generations to come? I don't know if I'm explaining myself properly, but I need to collaborate with you guys because it's very important and it's dear to my heart. Thank you.
Bet you're muted.
Yvette, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Ms. Hill, if you can put your information in the chat, first of all, the Du Bois Bunch Center would love to collaborate with you. And our executive director, Latoya Benjamin, probably would like to elaborate on the collaboration and partnerships that we have had with members of the community and estate planning programs that we have coming up.
I know Latoya personally too, so
there
yeah.
you go.
So I put my information anyway. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Comment?
I have a question. I didn't raise my hand, but
Sure, no, you don't have to.
how late is it too late for long-term care? Is 70 too late for long-term care if you're healthy?
Um, I'll take that question. No, 70 is not too late. If you're over 84, there's more of a difficulty. But 70 is not too late. You should still be looking if you have not done any planning.
Thank you.
Who should I send my information? This is Fay Hill. I don't want it to send to everybody. Who should I send it to?
Hi, Ms. Hill. So thank you. So we would absolutely love to collaborate with you. The Du Bois Bunce Center, all of our programs, we focus on these issues statewide. So, with the leadership of Yvette and Rhonda here, we would definitely, I'll circle back around to you to talk about a schedule for that. Thank you.
Good to see you also.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions? You don't have to raise your hand. You could just speak. Aaron will take you off mute. Can everyone see the link in the chat to register for the one-on-one sessions with Ms. Maco?
I don't see it in the chat. Oh yeah, I see it now. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Mako and Ms. Salmon, if you guys want to close it out. Any closing comments that you have for our guest?
Just, Sandra, you go first.
I'd like to say thank you all for having us here today. This is definitely an important topic, and more and more, I'm hoping that individuals will learn about what needs are available, what is there to address the needs and to help them before they run into a situation where they're already in the chaos and is planning from a point of fear. So please stay on top of this. We're going into the holidays when you're having your little drinks with your family members, conversations like Rhonda mentioned, talk about family history. Does anybody have any cancer, any heart disease, any Alzheimer's? You know, it's important to know all this. When you go to the doctor, they ask you about family history. Have these conversations so you know and you can make the proper planning. The worst thing to have happen is that not be aware you have breast cancer on both sides of the family, and then all of a sudden you're in a situation and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't do anything to plan for this because I didn't know. So again, thanks so much for having me here. Everybody, I want to wish you happy holidays, happy healthy new year. And Rhonda has my information if anyone has any questions and would like to reach out to me.
Thank you for that, Sandra. I'm just gonna move a little bit because I hear the landscapers outside and I want you guys to hear me. So listen, thank you all for showing up. This is actually a very important topic, very near and dear to my heart, just because, clients come all the time, and usually clients come to me when it's a little too late for certain things. And that's what we want to avoid. We're all busy doing so many different things, but we have to take time to do a proper evaluation and to make sure that we're protecting everything that we worked so hard for. Just think about that for a second. You have your loved ones, you want to create generational wealth. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. We throw around the term generational wealth as if it's some type of magical thing that's going to happen because you have money. And that's not how it works. Creating generational wealth means that you have to be proactive in how you make sure that that money can go to the next generation and the generation after that. There are plenty of people who are able to do it, and you should be one of those people. So when people say things like health is wealth, that's a true statement. But you have to understand the full breadth of what that statement means. And it starts with you planning now to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, your loved ones, and all that you've worked for. That includes long-term care, that includes estate planning, that includes all these different things that we want to talk to you about. So today is just the beginning. And we will have more information. We want to make sure that you are educated, you are ready. Let's go into 2026 the right way. So you taking the time out to be here today is the first step, and we really appreciate that. And we look forward to, talking to you about more of this and more issues that you need to be aware of. So thank you.
Again, thank you, Rhonda Mako and Sandra Salmon. In 11 days, we have New Year's Eve coming. We have a new year coming, 2026. So part of those resolutions, I'm going to stop drinking, I'll stop smoking, I'll start exercising. I'm going to do an estate plan, right? So everyone should have that as one of their top resolutions, estate planning. All right. So you could start on January 6th by signing up with the one-on-one session with Rhonda Mako. You could continue to follow the Du Bois Bunch Center with our programming and our events. Again, thank you for sharing this Saturday with us. Have a great new year.
God bless you. A wonderful seminar. Thank you, Ms. Dudley. Good to see you again.
Good
Hi,
seminar.
Mr.
Oh,
West. Thank
wow.
you.
I came
Amen.
on late, but I got something good. Oh, boy, this is fantastic. Thank you, guys. Have a happy holidays, and we see you in 2026. God bless.
Amen.
Happy holidays. Thank you
Happy
all.
holidays. Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you. This was
Holidays,
great.
everyone.
Happy
Take
Happy
care.
holidays.
Thank you.